Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Chef Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Dr. Lopkin, something you've been interested in is the T-Mobile merger. Maybe you can shed a little light on that.
Yeah, Sprint and T-Mobile have been in talks to merge. The FCC has basically said this is a great idea because the merger of these two companies are going to give us a big leg up in the deployment of 5G, which, aside from the technological advantage to your phones, it has national security implications. It has business and economic implications. So the FCC has said they are all for it. The FTC hasn't, made up their minds yet. But now, 10 attorney generals, led by New York, California, and Connecticut, are fighting to stop this merger because they think, oh, well, there's going to be one less company. They're concerned, oh, people's bills will go up.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is they haven't even looked at these companies. Cell phone bills have gone down because of T-Mobile's tactics. So they're actually pushing bills down. On top of that, the agreement that this company has with the FTC is that if they merge, Boost Mobile, which is owned by T-Mobile, would be spun off into its own company. So now you've still got the same number of companies competing. The one who is pushing costs down and technology up actually has a greater reach to do that. But our attorney generals want this stopped because they have no clue about how technology works, how business works. And ironically, not 4 days before the Attorney General of Connecticut announced that we were going to be involved in this fight to stop the merger, the Connecticut legislature passed legislation to fast track 5G in the state. So you've got the state government with the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing, and the attorney generals who have no clue what's going on, sticking their nose where it doesn't belong, primarily because they're all looking for higher office.
Well, it seems like one thing that I can certainly center on is that what's been proven to me over the last several years is really some of these politicians really have no clue about the real world. And I think that's one of the problems to transition to something else is with Biden. I believe he just looks completely out of touch, and he's an example compared to Trump, or juxtaposed to Trump, is someone that basically you can just tell he's been in public service for 50 years, and it shows, doesn't it?
Yeah, Biden has been on the campaign trail. He's taking on Trump. The problem is a lot of the policies that he's pushing are things that he fought against in the past. A lot of the problems that he's saying he's going to be able to solve were caused by legislation that he pushed.
Yeah, I'd like your overall assessment. I believe, even though they say in some polls he's 16 points ahead of Trump, I just don't see him going the distance. And I see him another Hillary campaign, no ideas, no energy, nada.
Yeah, he's not going to do as well as people are saying. And the poll you're talking about, it was the Quinnipiac poll, said he had a 16-point lead on Donald Trump. Well, the Quinnipiac poll in 2016 had Hillary winning by a landslide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they haven't changed their methodology any, so they're still not talking to Trump supporters.
No, also, I think one thing I've learned, even in the days before cell phone became everything, in other words, there were some landlines, is I remember in the 90s, they had Dole ahead of Clinton by like double digits, and obviously you know how that works. It's way too early to even. It's just all name recognition. It means absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, it's not even a matter of name recognition. I mean, if you look back historically, at this point in Obama's first campaign, nobody knew who he was yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have any idea who's going to, take the primary, never mind the general. It's way too early.
No question. Now, for our final little subject tidbit, I like maybe you can explain to our listeners a little bit about your assertion in terms of justice in the new age of the democratic regime.
Yeah, I'm getting very concerned about the standard of justice that the Democrats have put forth, because now we're starting to see local law enforcement fall back on their tactics. And specifically, what I'm referring to is if our listeners have watched the news at all over the past 2 weeks, they've probably seen the story. It made national news of the New Canaan woman who went missing, and she's been missing now for about 18 days. Well, they arrested her husband and his girlfriend. The problem is, according to the police spokesman themselves, they have some circumstantial evidence, but nothing directly tying the husband to the crime. They can't even prove that she's dead yet. They haven't found a body. They haven't found body parts. But instead of charging him with kidnapping, assault, murder, whatever it is that they think happened, because they can't prove any of that, they arrested him for hindering prosecution. In other words, obstruction of justice, which is the same thing the Democrats have been doing. They can't prove that a crime has taken place, so they're going after him for hindering prosecution and obstruction of justice. Now, this is terrifying to me, because it means basically any law enforcement, any group with any kind of power, if they can't prove that a crime was committed, they can just claim, oh, the reason we can't prove it is because he hindered prosecution and he's guilty of obstruction of justice, and we're going to go after him for that.
I think, Dr. Lopkin, you have an excellent point, and I believe it really centers around the morphing of justice that we've transitioned into a scenario and into a mindset where you're actually guilty until proven innocent, correct?
Exactly. I mean, people seem to have forgotten that the burden of proof is on the accuser. You have to prove that a crime was committed and that the person that is on trial committed that crime. Now, they're going after people with no evidence of that any crime was even committed, never mind that that person committed it.
I would agree 100% with that. I think it's a dangerous slope. And on that note, we conclude another edition of Carnivore Bites. Thanks a lot, Dr. Lopkin.
See you next week.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week at exvadio.com/podcasts, on the iHeartRadio app, the Apple Podcasts app, the iTunes Store, Spotify, and wherever you find podcasts. You can also catch us live every Friday at 4 on WESU FM 88.1.